Wow, good morning. We've come to the end of another month. It's unbelievable how time is, I won't say it's marching on because March has passed, but it's moving pretty quickly. It's Apriling on. So we just keep moving along with it. We're finishing up this month in talking about our sacred practice, spiritual mind treatment, which is our form of affirmative prayer. And we have covered 3 steps: recognition, unification, and realization are the steps that we covered before. And today we're looking at steps 4 and 5 because they go together: Thanksgiving and release. Thanksgiving and release. And I love the fact you guys were singing Grateful, because it just reminds us to always be grateful, to always be in a place of thanksgiving, a place of gratitude, because gratitude is of the highest vibration. And when we can remember to practice gratitude, then we are operating in that high vibration, and we also are living in a place where we are grateful for things many people take for granted. Many people take so many things for granted. So if you listen to the words of that song, the little things that people take for granted, we're just grateful for everything. And recognizing that as we stay in that vibration, then our consciousness expands even more and more and more in each and every moment of each and every day. And so as we finish up this month with the theme, a transcendent practice, as we practice spiritual mind treatment more and more, practice living each step of spiritual mind treatment in our daily lives, our lives become transcendent, and we become transparencies for the divine. We become transparencies. That's the word that keeps coming up for me. Transparencies for the divine, so that when you see me, you see God. When I see you, I see God. And I see the presence of God everywhere. And that's what we've been talking about all month. So how many people feel that you know a little bit more about spiritual mind treatment? How many feel like you are practicing it in your lives, steps, as we go along? That's good. I see so many hands. I'm impressed. That's really good. So, before I get to Thanksgiving and release, I'm reminded of when I first got involved in religious science many years ago. I won't say how many, but many years ago. My first practitioner, God love her, was so patient with me, because my default position about everything was resistance. And so I was very resistant to spiritual mind treatment. I was very resistant to 5-step treatment. It didn't make sense to me that we had to do 5 steps. And I used to say to her all the time, why do we have to do 5 steps? It doesn't make sense to go through recognition, unification, realization, thanksgiving, and release. Why can't I just pray like I've always prayed? And oh, you agree, huh? And she would say to me, spiritual mind treatment anchors us. It gives us that place where we can be anchored in spirit. It gives us a place where we can unify, and then we can speak the word with authority. And she told me all the things that I now know about spiritual mind treatment. Didn't make sense to me. I still didn't know why we got to do 5 steps. Why can't we just pray like I've been praying all along? She was so patient. She'd come right back and she'd say, when you have the 5 steps down pat, it's like a road map. If you get caught in a pinch, if you get caught in an emergency, you don't have to wonder what to say, where to go, how to do it. You go right there. You right in the presence of God. You right in oneness with God, and that's where your power is. So we went through that for several years. And baby, that's why I took Science of Mind 1, which is now Foundations, 8 times, because I never felt like I was embodying the teachings, because I just couldn't get why I had to do 5 steps of treatment. That just didn't make sense to me. Even though I did it in a very rote fashion with a little bit of resentment and resistance on the side. And they probably didn't work. But I still did it that way. And I continued to study. I continued to be concerned about the fact that this word embody shows up throughout Ernest Holmes' writings, throughout our teachings in religious science, embodying the truth, embodying the teachings, embodying the prayer, embodying the principles. And I didn't quite know what that meant because I knew that I understood things in my head, but what I didn't know was that I had not dropped down into my heart. And I didn't understand it here at a deeper level. And so my head was constantly arguing about the fact that there were 5 steps of treatment that I had to do, that I still couldn't figure out why, even though I did them anyway. And it wasn't until years later when I was studying to be a practitioner. I had not become a practitioner at that time. But my father passed away on a Saturday morning. And he was in Alabama, I was in California. And I received a call at 5 o'clock in the morning that my father had passed away. And so as soon as I hung up the phone from talking to my mother's sister, I pressed the button and I dialed my practitioner. This was a different practitioner at 5 o'clock in the morning. And she answered her phone very groggily, very sleepily, Saturday morning, 5 o'clock. And when she answered the phone, my thought was, she's sound asleep. But I said to her, Daddy just passed away. Without any hesitation and with total focus, she immediately started to do a spiritual mind treatment. She immediately recognized the power and the presence of God. She immediately knew that she was at one with God, and then she immediately spoke the word for me, for my family, for my father, for all of us. And it was in that moment that I understood what the 5 steps of treatment were all about. It was in that moment that I understood what my practitioner from years ago had been trying to tell me all along. That when you know and you practice the 5 steps, they serve as an anchor. They anchor us into spirit. They anchor us into the truth. They anchor us into our awareness of our oneness with spirit. They anchor us into our ability to speak the word with authority. They anchor us. They anchor us into the present moment and into the truth that God is everywhere present always, and that there's nothing that can block that. And there's no thing that can separate me from that power and that presence that is always right where I am, no matter what's going on. For the first time, after all those years of studying and arguing and resisting and carrying on, I understood how spiritual mind treatment can anchor us, how she could wake up from a deep sleep and just immediately know the truth and speak the word. I have since learned to do that because I was able to move from my head to my heart. I was able to open up and to recognize that power and that presence of God is everywhere we are. And that's what I'm encouraging each of us to do, each and every moment of each and every day. As we go through our lives, practicing the presence of God everywhere, recognizing the presence of God everywhere, recognizing the activity of God everywhere. And as I've said all month, this doesn't happen seriatim. It can all happen simultaneously. Because as we move into that recognition stage, if we're just sort of wondering about how to get unified, or how to believe that we're unified, looking at our hands and our feet and taking a breath and recognizing that God is even closer than that God is even closer than this hand that's attached to my body, than this foot that's attached to my body, than this breath that I take right now. When I'm in that place of unification, then any word that I speak has to be powerful. Any word that I speak has to have the manifestation within it, has to have the demonstration within it. And so that's what we are here to do. That's what we are called to do. That's how we learn this powerful, powerful tool of spiritual mind treatment that we have. One thing I didn't say about realization is keeping everything, when we're in the realization phase, we are making our claim upon the universe. We're making our claim upon the law. We are what's called standing in the knowing. Standing in the knowing that healing is happening right here because God is right here, right where I am right now. That's what realization is about. And keeping it in the here and now, in the present moment, we don't get caught up in the future. We don't get caught up in the past. We know that the future and the past are rolled into this present moment because this is the only time we have. And so we speak our word in the moment. And that's where the power is, and that's where healing happens. And that's where change happens. And that's where everything comes together because, as I said last week, it all fades into God. Everything fades into God. Everything fades into God. I'm hearing a Bias Beckwith song that some of the words are my future and my past are rolled into this moment. There's only one moment in time, and that's right here and right now. And so when we get through, as we move through this phase of treatment, the first 3 steps, then we can move into the Thanksgiving. We can move into the Thanksgiving because the Thanksgiving is also a standing in the knowing because we're giving thanks in advance. We're giving thanks in advance like Jesus stood outside the tomb of Lazarus and said, Father, I give thanks that you hearest me. And then he called forth Lazarus from the tomb. But he gave thanks in advance because he knew it had already happened. He knew his word was powerful enough that it could happen. He knew that in his at one-ment with God, whatever he was speaking his word for was going to happen. That's what we have to know, that whatever we speak our word for has to happen, has to manifest. And so we give thanks in advance. And when I say that a treatment is not, the 5 steps of treatment are not seriatim, we can start off a treatment with, I give thanks for, and then go to recognition, and then go to unification. Or I give thanks for, and then for knowing that I am one with God. So in any way we do it, so long as we are touching on those 5 steps, so long as we are touching on those parts of the treatment, those parts of the prayer that anchor us in the truth of who we are and the truth of our connection with the all that is, then that's where the power is, that's where the healing is. And so we give thanks. We give thanks. We give thanks knowing that it is already done. We give thanks knowing that it's already done. We don't have to worry about it. And then we release. We release. We let it go. We let God handle it. We turn it over to the law. We release it. We let it go. We turn it over to the law. We don't release it and worry. Anybody hear that? We don't release it and worry about, I wonder if that's going to happen. I wonder did that treatment work? I wonder did I speak it louder? I wonder did I say the right words? I wonder did I wonder did God hear me? When I was a little girl, we knelt and prayed. I think many of us did. And I would be one who would get on my knees and say my prayer so fast and hop in the bed, and my mother would come in and say, that prayer didn't get past the ceiling. Get back down here. That didn't get past the ceiling. Get back on your knees and pray so God can hear you. So I think sometimes now we still get caught up in that, wondering, after we release, wondering, well, if God didn't hear us, but wondering if that treatment took, or whatever the case may be. We have little doubts about it. Well, when we have all that, we haven't released it. We haven't released it. We have to go back. Ernest Holmes says, you treat as many times as you need to. That's basically what he says. That as many times as when you can do a treatment and you know that it's done, then you can move on. But when you do a treatment and then little things start popping up and you have a question about it, do it again until you know that it's done. Who's counting? What we want is the results. What we want is the demonstration, the manifestation. And we get that because if we are not in that place of unification, if we sometimes we bop in and out of it. We don't just get there and rest. I think Jesus may have done that. There may have been times when, as he got to be the Christ, he didn't do it. But once he became the Christ, he could be in that place and just stay there. We are still developing our Christhood. And so we have to continue to treat and then come back and treat again. And then if you feel the fear rising, come back, speak the word again. We aren't beseeching, we aren't begging, we aren't pleading. We are getting to the place where we are knowing the truth. Because the whole purpose of our doing a treatment is to clear our own minds, to clear our own thinking. We're treating our own minds. That's the purpose of spiritual mind treatment. To treat the mind of the one who's doing the treating. To clear the mind so that you can know the truth, so that you can see the truth, so that you can be in the truth, so that you can stand in the knowing that this surgery is perfect, that these medical professionals are guided and guarded right here from on high, and that they are God in action, that my financial situation is cleared up right now, that my relationship is healed right now. Whatever it is we need to know, we get to know that in that moment of unification. And so once we know that and speak the word for that, give thanksgiving for it, and release it, we can let it go. We can let it go. And we can go on about our lives knowing that God has this. We've turned it over. And knowing that God has this, and that the law is working. The law is working. It is working on that which we put into it, that which we spoke into it, with feeling, with belief, with faith, with knowingness. Ernest Holmes says that spiritual mind treatment sets in motion a law that responds not only to what we say, but the way we say it. Not only to what we say, but the way we say it. So all the flowery words that we use sometimes, they don't mean anything if there's no feeling behind them, if there's no belief behind them, if there's no truth behind them, if there's truth with a capital T behind them, if there's no knowingness that the word that I speak is the law unto that thing whereunto it is sent. That's when our treatment has power. And so whether we use flowery words in our everyday lives, whether we even know how to, the important thing is to know the truth, to know that God is in the midst of everything, every situation, every circumstance, every event, whatever is going on, knowing that God is in the midst of it. And knowing that so clearly that you can give thanks right now because I know that this situation is healed. I know that the situation is already taken care of. I know, because I know that God is. That's all we ever need to know. Just before I came into the sanctuary this morning, I received a call that one of my closest friends, dearest friends of 40 years, was being taken in for blood transfusions this morning. And I didn't have time to take the time to do a full treatment with, what we call a full treatment with the person who called me. But I was able to know the truth in that brief phone call. I was able to know that God is right where she is. I was able to know the truth that the doctors and the nurses and the medical professions and the professionals and the equipment and the technology and everything is God in action. Everything is God in action. And I know that everything is unfolding most divinely, most perfectly, God's time, God's way. And I was able to give thanks, to release it to the working of the law with no attachment to what God's outcome is. But just knowing that any prayer that I pray, any prayer that you pray is for the highest and the best of all concerned. Let your prayer be not outlining, but specific. You can be specific so long as it's for the highest and the best of all concerned. Being specific about what you want is important. So long as it doesn't take anything from anybody else, it doesn't impinge on anybody else's rights, so long as it doesn't interfere with somebody else's life, so long as it's for the highest and best for all concerned. You might want that house on the hill, on the mountaintop, with all the lights around the outside and the trees on this side and the cactus on that side. Probably not trees on the mountain, but cactus on one side and whatever. But to pray specifically for that house could be interfering with somebody else's good. That may not be the highest and the best for you or for somebody else. So being specific about the kind of house you want, I'm just using that as an example, being specific is fine. And always adding, even when we are specific, this, Lord, or something better. This, Lord, or something better. That which is for the highest, that which is for the best of all concerned. And so just knowing in the moment that God knows so much more than we do, that there's so much more that we can't see, that we can't know. But what we do is we stand in our faith, we stand in our trust, we stand in our truth, and we stand in our knowing. We stand in our knowing. We stand in the knowing that God is all there is, that God is my very life, that God is in the midst of every situation, including this situation right here and right now. And we give thanks for that, and we can release it, and we can let it go. If we find ourselves worrying, we come right back, and we do it again. And we release, and we let it go. We release, and we let God. Let's take a breath. And just say to yourself, I release and I let go. I release and I let God. I release whatever I've been holding on to and I let God. I trust in God more than I trust in anyone and anything. I give thanks in this moment for the perfect outcome, and I release and I let God. And so let's continue in this prayerful moment, this prayerful time, as we continue to open our hearts, allowing our entire being open to the power and the presence of God that is right here, right now, right where we are. That is always right here, right now, right where we are. And that no matter what is going on, nothing can change that. For God is everywhere present in every situation and circumstance. God is. And this isness is my very life. This one life is my life. This one life that is perfect is my life. This one life that is perfect is the life of each of us here this day. There's nothing that can separate us from it except our own thinking, except our own belief. And so when we let go of our disbelief or unbelief, we can stand in the knowing that God is right here, right now, and God is my very life, and I am one with it. And I can speak the word for each of us this day, speaking a word of wholeness as we continue to move through this time in our lives, on our journeys. Speaking a word of wholeness and knowing that the allness and the fullness of God is right where we are, and that all needs are met in each and every moment of each and every day in our lives, whatever our needs may be. That God shows up as whatever it is we need. Always, always, always taking care of us, always loving, always lifting us up. And so our lives are filled with love and peace and harmony and perfect health and wholeness. Our lives are filled with forgiveness and compassion. Our lives are filled with great relationships and financial abundance. Our lives are filled with service and givingness. Our lives are filled with joy and laughter and fun. Our lives are filled with serenity and the blessings of God, the blessings from on high. And so I say thank you, Father, Mother God, for this knowingness. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for this powerful tool of spiritual mind treatment that we have where we can just come together and know the truth and speak the truth and stand in that knowing that the truth is being made manifest. And so as I open this circle of prayer, I pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer. You may speak them now, but you may speak them silently or loud. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I'm just knowing that God is right where each and every one of them is. Right here and right now. That this prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer this day. To the people and the families and the residents of Poway, California, of Sri Lanka, of everywhere that there's pain and suffering and injury. God is. God is. And we each know God is in the midst. And healing is happening regardless of the appearance. And so I just say thank you, Father, Mother, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, infinite presence. Thank you in advance, because I know that it is already done. It is already done. It is already done. And so I just release the word spoken with certitude and not just allow it to be. And so it is.